Montreal is facing a serious housing crisis that threatens the basic needs of many residents. The causes and consequences of this crisis are complex and interconnected, but some of the main factors are the rising rent prices. Rents have spiked in Montreal during the pandemic, with the city registering its highest average rent increases since the early 2000s, for 0.2% in 2020 and 3.7% in 2021, according to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC. This makes it harder for low-income households and vulnerable groups to afford decent housing, especially in central and gentrifying neighborhoods. The declining supply of affordable units. The vacancy rate in Montreal improved slightly in 2020, reaching 2.7%, but this was mostly due to the pandemic's impact on immigration and student demand. The availability of affordable units, however, remains very low, with only 0.8% of units renting for less than $800 per month. Moreover, many landlords use renovation as a pretext to evict tenants and increase rents, reducing the stock of rent-controlled apartments. The loss of population to other regions. The high cost and scarcity of housing in Montreal has pushed some residents to move to other regions, such as the suburbs or rural areas, where housing is more affordable and available. This can have negative effects on the social and economic fabric of the city, as well as on the environment and transportation. The impact on low-income households and vulnerable groups. The housing crisis in Montreal has disproportionately affected people who are already marginalized or at risk of homelessness, such as women, immigrants, refugees, Indigenous people, seniors, students, and people with disabilities or mental health issues. Many of them face discrimination, harassment, poor living conditions, eviction, or displacement due to the lack of adequate and accessible housing options. Some end up living in shelters, on the streets, or in overcrowded and unsafe dwellings. The housing crisis in Montreal is not only a matter of bricks and mortar. It is also a matter of human rights, dignity, and social justice. It requires urgent and comprehensive action from all levels of government and society to ensure that everyone can access affordable, adequate, and secure housing in the city. Montreal is facing a serious housing crisis that threatens the basic needs of many of its residents. According to Centraide of Greater Montreal, nearly 1 in 5 households in the city do not have enough income to pay for their rent and other essential expenses, such as food, clothing, and transportation. After paying their rent, these households start the month already in the red, with a total annual deficit of $3.6 billion. This situation has a negative impact on various aspects of social well-being, such as child development, mental health, food security, domestic violence, and homelessness. It also affects the social fabric and diversity of Montreal's neighborhoods, as low-income families and individuals are pushed out by rising rents and gentrification. The housing crisis is not only a problem of supply and demand, but also of affordability and accessibility. While Montreal's vacancy rate is higher than some other regions of Quebec, the average rent has increased faster than inflation and income in the past 2 years. Moreover, only 13% of rental units in Montreal are considered affordable for those making less than $25,000 a year. The pandemic has added more challenges and opportunities to Montreal's housing situation. On one hand, it has exacerbated the existing inequalities and vulnerabilities of renters, especially those who lost their jobs or income due to COVID-19. On the other hand, it has also created a window of opportunity for innovation and collaboration among different stakeholders to find lasting solutions to the crisis. One of the challenges that Montreal faces is the role of short-term rentals, such as Airbnb, in reducing the availability of long-term housing for residents. According to a recent study by McGill University researchers, Airbnb hosts removed over 31,000 homes from the rental market across Canada in 2018. In Quebec, the province has introduced new legislation that imposes hefty fines on short-term rental companies who do not follow the rules, such as registering their units and paying taxes. This could serve as a model for other parts of the country and help ease the pressure on the housing market. Another challenge that Montreal faces is the need for more social and supportive housing for vulnerable populations, such as seniors, newcomers, people with disabilities and mental health issues, and those who are at risk of or experiencing homelessness. According to FRAPRU, a provincial network of housing groups, Quebec needs to build at least 50,000 social housing units over the next 5 years to meet the demand. However, the current pace of construction is far from sufficient. In 2020 to 2021, only 1,365 social housing units were completed in Montreal. To address this challenge, Montreal needs more funding and support from both the federal and provincial governments, as well as more collaboration and coordination among different actors in the housing sector. For example, Centraide of Greater Montreal has launched a collective impact project called Together for Housing, which brings together over 400 community stakeholders to find lasting solutions to the housing crisis for vulnerable people. The project aims to create more affordable and accessible housing units, prevent evictions and homelessness, and improve living conditions for tenants. Montreal's housing crisis is a complex and urgent issue that requires collective action and systemic change. By working together and leveraging our strengths and resources, we can ensure that everyone in our city has access to adequate and affordable housing that meets their needs and aspirations.